With the weekend right around the corner, team number 8 on the 12 and 12 series features Richmond. I'm Bobby Broyles alongside Tim McDonald. The Spiders' offseason headlines have to start with the hiring of new head coach Russ Huesman, who inherits 20 starters heading into this fall, Tim.
Not a bad gig to show up and get that, but it was really interesting when Richmond had to hire a new coach. I really was impressed by the quickness and the speed and the quality, too. This is a guy, 8 starters on offense, 8 starters on defense, and nearly everyone back on special teams. So that's maybe why you get confused with 20 starters, but got to give special teams some love, too. Not just players with experience, but players who know how to win and get the job done. Let's not forget, all of a sudden, 3 straight trips to the FCS playoffs for Richmond, a preseason top 10 ranking, I should say, as well. And Huesman is a guy we are familiar with. Has been through the gauntlet of CAA football previously. He's been at William & Mary in the past as an assistant. He's been at Richmond as an assistant, defensive coordinator for the Spiders during the 2008 national title run. Built and forged Chattanooga, in my mind, into a premier team in the SoCon the past 8 seasons, and we've seen Chattanooga teams in the playoffs. We know that it's a physical team. They've had players go to the NFL, had a lot of success at Chattanooga, but obviously came to Richmond because of the familiarity, but also because he knows what he has the potential here. It's no secret Richmond dealt with a ridiculous list of season-ending injuries a year ago, but managed to make it to the quarterfinals. You talk about beating NCA&T, upsetting North Dakota on the road with backup Kevin Johnson at quarterback, and then you kind of just run out of steam at Eastern Washington. Kyle Lauletta was one of those players lost to injury late. Now he's a senior all of a sudden and still one of the top quarterbacks in this league, and I think he's ready to prove that. A torn ACL in the regular season finale, loss at William & Mary, and clearly, obviously, a huge blow, but thoroughly, for me, looking forward to seeing him respond. And you know he's going to try and prove that early and often for this Richmond team. Passed for 3,022 yards last year and 24 touchdowns before that injury, and another rare case in this preview series of a team that doesn't really have any concerns under center during fall camp, especially depth at running back. I mean, we can go up and down the list. Deontez Thompson rushed for 1,000 yards last year as a freshman. A healthy Gordon Collins and Xavier Goodall. They're both back. A lot of depth at running back, and the weapons continue. We see Garrett Hudson, tight end, Tyler Wilkins. He could possibly be that guy to step up and be the next Brian Brown. Even kicker, Griffin Trow, got to give him some love too. He's a preseason All-American at place kicker, so he's back for them as well. All of those guys stepped up in 2016, and their roles are only going to increase and become larger again this time around. No doubt whatsoever in my mind that the offensive pieces are back. For me, it's a question of, and we've talked about new coaches and new systems, but how do you adapt? And another new coaching staff, another new offensive coordinator, another new defensive coordinator. This has been a theme for Richmond, but the players have adjusted, and it's coupled with that grueling schedule featuring 3 top 10 ranked teams, including the opener, which, by the way, is just 9 days away now.
We met and spoke with new Spider head coach Russ Huesman at Media Day and asked about what the Spider offense could look like in year 1 under his direction.
We'll be in the spread, out of the gun, 1 back, sometimes 2 backs, but no fullback. It'll just be, if we got 2 backs back there, both tailback kind of guys. A lot of formations, motions, personnel groupings. That won't change from Chattanooga. You know, the RPO stuff with the quarterback, we'll have that in there. The zone read stuff, we'll have. Not as many quarterbacks runs as we did at Chattanooga, for sure. But it'll be a similar offense, you know, tweak here or there to throw it a little bit more than we have in the past. But, you know, it'll be very similar offense.
For all of the impactful players back on offense, that Spider defense might have something to say with 8 starters returning, Tim.
Yeah, you know, we hint about it and we've talked about it, and I feel like we even mentioned it last year, but one could argue that what makes Richmond so capable on offense and has so much production has a lot to do with how the defensive unit has played, especially the last 2 seasons. 5th in rush defense, 2nd in pass defense, and 3rd in total defense last year. Nothing's going to overly jump out the page and, that's a very physical team, but they just kind of get the job done all around. How many years, too, has Andrew Clyde and Brandon Waller been in school? 2 of those players where you sit there and you watch and you say, isn't that guy like a 6th-year senior? But that seems like forever, but that's also a good thing. Waller missed a few games late last year, but had 5.5 sacks and 51 tackles in just 9 games played. And at times, he showed up and was a force defensively. Brandon Conacher finished 2nd in tackles on the team with 94 last year, and him and Waller were both All-CAA performers in 2016. In the secondary, Tafon Mensah, we talked with at Media Day, saw him at Media Day, provides that spark. He had 12 pass breakups and led the team with 3 picks a year ago. And Jarrell Jordan is also back and good to go after missing half the year, again due to injury. Him and Mensah on the outside are the 2 lockdown guys who really force quarterbacks to beat you with the run. And you got to replace guys like Omar Howard, one of my favorite all-time CAA football players. Got to say it. But Winston Craig and David Jones are also gone. But what I like about this unit in the past, and I hope and I expect that to continue into the fall, is this unit just goes to work each and every week. Doesn't need a pat on the back. It doesn't need to share the spotlight. The offense can handle the headlines, and the defense can stay in that back view mirror. And that's just that type of unselfish attitude. That's what I've come to appreciate watching Richmond defensively over the last couple of years.
Here's Coach Huseman again, now highlighting the players he expects to be key contributors on defense.
Well, we had a lot of them didn't participate, but Micah Keels, who played off and on, he's a starter off and on. He looked really good. Tefon Mainsaw, who we brought with us here, we think is an excellent player, big physical corner. He had a nice spring. Brandon Waller stayed healthy this spring and did a nice job. Andrew Clyde, inside, was a returning starter. We think he's got big-time potential. And then a guy that's coming off injury was Jerry L. Jordan. At one corner, I think he got hurt middle of the season. We're thrilled to have him back. And then at safety, they had the injuries at safety last year, but Brendan Conacher is an excellent player. And then Lee Johnson, we think, will be really good at the other safety.
It is hard to ignore the schedule right off the bat for Richmond this season, Tim, but before breaking it down for us, what is the biggest challenge facing this team under the direction of a new head coach?
For me, Bob, it begins and ends with the handling of the changes that have already been made. This season, you look at the middle of last year and all the way through the end of 2016, and now to fall camp in 2017, and right now in this month and this week. How did those changes, how are they handled by the team? You can't help but think about the differences, the what-ifs, that this could have happened if Richmond had things go the other way last year. And I'm sure the players have talked about it, and I'm sure the coaches have talked about it, but for me, it's all those speculations and all those questions have already been asked. That is over with. And now we get the impression, at least leading into this year, we get the impression and have seen that the Spiders are ready to move on officially to 2017. I think it's well already into that mode. The schedule begins with a massive road test at Sam Houston State, a team we've talked about in the past, as recent as last year, in fact, in the quarterfinals of the FCS playoffs. A team with ironic connections as well. We know all about Casey Keeler, former head coach of Delaware at Sam Houston State. We also know Coach Huseman's final game at Chattanooga last year came in a loss at the end of 2016 on that same field in the playoffs. So you have to wonder if he's thought about that at all. But all the eyes of the FCS and the conference are no doubt going to be on that Sunday night primetime matchup. And I know we'll get into it, but after the Bearcats, the Spiders complete non-conference with an away game at Colgate, then home versus Howard. And Richmond is the lone team across CAA football this year to not play an FBS foe. Understandable when you consider the quality of opponents. And you start with that Sam Houston game, which again was moved up earlier. So starting fall camp, a lot of teams are midway through. Richmond's already 3/4 of the way through fall camp. I look at that final 6 games down the stretch, headlined by 4 road contests. Going to be absolutely huge. And if Richmond gets through the first part, great. It's going to be huge, though. At Towson, at Delaware, at Villanova, and at JMU, and ends, of course, with the Capital Cup at home, which this year Richmond's going to be looking to get a little bit of revenge. But how do seniors like Lauletta, like Waller, like Light, like Conacher, like Mainsaw, you can keep on going, and others keep this ship steady and move on to 2017? Knowing how quickly things have changed in just a year, I want to see how they keep the ship steady moving into a completely new season. They want to leave their mark, trust me. They want to leave their mark, so I'm really interested to see how those guys step up in the leadership roles.
Well, it'll be right around the corner, Tim, because they open the season less than 10 days away now on Sunday, August the 27th at 7 o'clock on ESPNU. That will be the first meeting between the two schools and the first official game for the conference in 2017.
Speaking of Kyle Lauletta, senior quarterback, spoke with us and our crew at Media Day for a little one-on-one convo about all things on and off the field, and you can watch that now on CAAfootball.com, and stay tuned to our social platforms as well, searching CAA Football for more coverage of the Spiders all day long.
Tim and I are off for the weekend, but back here on Monday as 12 and 12 continues with Stony Brook. Have a great Friday.